All set, Dallas? Okay. Good snowy morning, everybody. Welcome to the Veterans and Military Affairs public hearing. Senator Marks, I'm going to start this public hearing. Representative Nolan, anything you'd like to say?
Just good morning, and looking forward to hearing the speakers come before us today and let us know with their thoughts and opinions.
Okay, we will start with Commissioner Saudi. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Just want to do a quick sound check.
You sound great.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'm appearing here on two screens, unfortunately, so let me, members of the committee, Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, and honorable members of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, thank you so much on the snowy day for giving me the opportunity to give some testimony with regard to the department's positions on a few of the bills pending in today's public hearing. First, I'd like to address Senate Bill 1129, an act concerning assistance for publication of veterans' obituaries. The department absolutely appreciates the good intentions behind this bill, recognizing the fiscal challenges for families and paying the cost of services for obituaries when a loved one dies. I have to tell you, I know this all too personally after the heartbreaking deaths of three close members of my family, including my mother, in the past 6 months. However, as a veteran myself, I do not agree with establishing, and the department does not support the establishing of a special fund to support obituaries for veterans, as there are many families who struggle even to afford a short obituary for their loved ones, many of whom have done much for our communities, our state, and our nation, but are not veterans. Also, there are no funds currently included within the biennial budget for implementation of this proposal. That said, should you move forward with this bill, there are several issues I believe that should be addressed regarding potential implementation. The first is that the committee, as a matter of public policy, should establish in the legislature, as a matter of lawmaking policy, the eligibility criteria, including income level or means test or asset test, and not delegate this responsibility to the department, which has no model or baseline upon which to make such a determination. You could do this by reference to a specific amount or cross-reference to income eligibility criteria for other social service statutory entitlements. You should also establish, if you move forward this, a reasonable cap on the amount to be provided, as obituaries, as we all know, range in price based on the number of characters and text, and no person who is eligible should be able to receive more funds than another. You should also understand that to determine eligibility pursuant to an established criteria and proper verification process of the payee, applicants would need to submit substantiating financial documents, including but potentially not limited to tax returns, bank statements, as well as proof that they are the responsible paying party for the obituary. The DVA would need to review the claims, which could amount to thousands of applications per year and tens of thousands of pages of documents, potentially request additional or clarifying information, and then interface with the state treasurer to send payment to the approved party. This process would take time, and determining eligibility would not be able to be made until after the publication of any obituary for which the claim is filed. Therefore, to the extent you move forward with this bill, the process would need to be looked at as a reimbursement type of benefit rather than an upfront payment. You should also determine something which can be very sensitive in these situations, whether or not the state would be paying for or helping to pay for obituaries for veterans who, after the military service, have criminal records. And if so, establish a delineation as to the level of allowable offense, such as misdemeanor versus felony, violent versus nonviolent offense. This would then also require the agency to conduct a criminal background check on that veteran, which would add additional time to implementation. Finally, with regard to this bill, the DVA doesn't currently have fiscal staff or existing procedures to implement the concept, as the DVA in our core functions is a direct provider of programs and services. We do not handle any veterans benefits that include the payment of funds to veterans in the community. Therefore, to implement the bill, the DVA would require at least 2 new full-time positions within our fiscal department. The first being an eligibility determination specialist and a full-time supporting administrative assistant to support that position. Finally, I would ask you to take into consideration that should there be money in a fund at any time, the amount of claims could potentially exceed the amount of funds in that specialized fund and how that would be addressed. So for these reasons, the department opposes the bill as it is currently written. And I would like to say just a few more words about SB 1131, if I may, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair. Yes. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Yep,
Okay.
go right ahead.
Thank you. With regard to an act concerning specialty license plates for driver's licenses for certain former members of the National Guard, the department has for many years supported the concept of expanded limited recognition of veteran status to members of the National Guard and reserve components of the armed forces. While this bill does extend such recognition to members of the National Guard, it does not address members of the other reserve components of the armed forces who are similarly situated to those in the National Guard that do not have that federally qualifying active duty service beyond their initial duty training. I know this issue personally, as had I left the Army Reserve after 13 years of service before I volunteered for active duty 4 years ago, I would not have qualified for veteran status on my driver's license or license plate. As such, to the extent that you extend such recognitions to members of the National Guard, I would ask that you also include in the language members of the reserve components of the armed forces. Also, please keep in mind to avoid confusion as to eligibility for other veterans benefits that require qualifying federal active duty service, I urge you to include in the language of the final legislation an express statement that veteran status on driver's licenses and license plates with the DMV not qualify necessarily as proof of eligibility for other veterans benefits. I thank you so much for your time, for your service to our state and to our veterans, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have regarding my testimony or other bills under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Saudi. Are there any questions from Representative Chair Nolan?
Thank you, sir, for coming before us. We always respect what you have as far as input in regards to anything that comes through the Veterans and Military Affairs. On SB 130, if you can send us your adjustments that you recommend. I know it's going to be in testimony, but it would be appreciated if you can email us those adjustments that you're looking to add. And in regards to you're not really supporting the other bill, if you can send us that also. I know it's in testimony, but an email in regards to it, strictly to the points that you made, would be appreciated also. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, I will send those to you, including specific language for 1131 on the driver's license and license plates, as well as a more succinct or bullet point approach on the other bill which I raised.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't see any online. No. Next, we have Representative Zawistowski. Is Representative Zawistowski here?
Yes, right here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Co-chairs Nolan and Marks, ranking members Vale and Gordon, thank you for hearing me this morning. I want to send greetings from the snowy north. I had intended to be there in person, but my driveway is not yet plowed. I also want to thank you for advancing the proposal that I had and drafting the bill HB 5048, an act concerning the fees for veteran specialty license plates. This is something that was brought to me by several veterans who are very proud of their service, but really wanted to be able to do this without having to incur some of the fees that are charged for the specialty license plates. A lot of the veterans, especially the older ones that may have not really spent a lot of time trying to, as far as let people know that they've served. Some of them are coming around and are very interested, but a lot of them tend to be, the older ones at least, on fixed incomes. So we'd like to be able to see something where they get a price break on these specialty plates. I also want to talk to you on number Bill 1131, which is it's the ones that Commissioner Sadi just talked about for the National Guard. I had not intended to speak on that, but after I listened to Commissioner Sadi, I think it's a excellent idea to be able to include the National Guard. And he also mentioned other reserve components of the armed forces. I think it's important for our veterans to be recognized and to be honored. So again, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Okay. Oh, sorry. Ranking Member Vale, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Representative Zaleskowski. I should know how to say that by now. I said it so many times, and we both hail from the beautiful town of Stafford Springs. So to be clear, do you support either like a reduction in fee or they don't pay a fee at all?
I'd like to see an elimination of the fee, but even a reduction in the fee would be helpful. I think that this is something that was brought up by several veterans that I spoke to. I think they would be happy to even just get a price break on it. You said ideally elimination, but if financially the best we can do is a price break, that would be really appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go to Mr. Matthew Knapp. Mr. Knapp?
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Knapp, and I own a home in Windsor Locks. I want to start off by thanking everyone in this room that has served. You have a piece of my heart, and we're family. I spent 7 long, hard years as a tanker in the Army, but was medically retired due to having tumors in my brain, my back, and my butt from exposure during my deployments, along with other mental and physical disabilities that prevent me from maintaining employment. I'm on a strict income, fixed income. It's not going to go up. Well, it just went up, but the taxes, I don't understand. When I came home to Connecticut, I thought I was going to have some support. That is the furthest from the truth. And that's why I'm here today, because veterans, we need change. We need somebody to stand up in this room and do something about it before it's too late. The amount of discrimination I face in this state is unbelievable. From the VA to Naugatuck Community College, I've realized I can't function in society, and I am best at home by myself. Veterans are not getting any help when we're clearly asking for it. All of my income is from the federal government for my service-connected injuries, and I get 0 assistance from the state of Connecticut. There's no logic Connecticut asking veterans for money. Connecticut should be assisting veterans, not taking money out of our pockets. The veteran community makes up 0.04% of Connecticut's population. Of that small percentage, there are very few veterans that are 100% disabled and own a home. Exempting 100% disabled veterans from property tax would take not much money out of the governor's rainy day fund that he loves to talk about. There are now 18 states that 100% disabled veterans are property exempt from. Some examples are California, New Jersey, Illinois, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and more. Massachusetts also offers an annuity check every 6 months for $1,000 to 100% disabled veterans for life. For life. People keep telling me to just leave, but that doesn't fix the problem here. Please, I'm asking everyone in this committee for some support. Let's get Bill 643 going and figure out how we're going to really help veterans. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Thank you for your service, and we're definitely listening to what you have said. Have you tried to use the municipal aid the Veterans Municipal Aid volunteer in your town?
Ma'am, all of this is extremely frustrating to me because I've spoken to every single person and I'm getting nowhere. I've been trying to do this for a year and I'm in a hamster wheel. That's what the VA is. You're in a hamster wheel. You go in there and you're stuck. And I'm trying to get out of the stuckness. I've been sober for 9 months. I've lost 100 pounds and I appreciate everyone who legalized cannabis because it's changed my life. You guys need to wake up and do something for us. I don't know why you're taking money out of my pocket. My electric kayak is taxed. My car is taxed. My house is taxed. All of my money is from the federal government. It makes 0 sense for Connecticut to be taking money out of my pocket. I'm asking for help and I'm going to continue to ask for help because I am not going to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And although I have not served, I am a visiting nurse who has many veterans as patients. And I was in the home of one yesterday, and they do dealing sometimes with the VA. It is very difficult and it is very frustrating, especially if you don't have somebody there to help you along the way. So I will get your number from your email from our clerk, and as chair, I will reach out to you after the meeting. Are there anybody else? Chair Nolan?
Thank you, Mr. Knapp, for coming before us, and definitely thank you for your service and your fight to make sure that we can alleviate you from the taxes that you're talking about. I am a staunch supporter of doing that, and I will continue to fight. We are new chairs to this committee, and you know, I really believe in changing the amount of taxes that our veterans pay. So I will continue to fight that. You know, I asked you to reach out to all on our committee to make sure that they understand what you're going through so they can know how important it is to do the same. But I am definitely in agreement with you. And I ask also that you send a contact number if you haven't, so that we can make contact with you. I also congratulate you on your 9 months of being sober. That is an awesome testimony to hear. And we will definitely work to make the changes that are needed for veterans when it comes to taxes. So thank you very much. And please continue to fight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Rep. Fail?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Knapp. And that's, we've had issues, and that's what our good chair asked if you had talked to your municipal rep. And there are so many programs that are available to you. And it's a matter of where I think we're lacking most is the communication and letting people know in different communities how to access these programs. And in some communities, they're doing a good job, and in others, they're not, to be honest. And there are a lot of programs out there for you. And I do think, and I would like your personal information as well. I actually, my second job is in Windsor Locks at Longview RV. So I'm right down the road, and I live in Stafford Springs, and not too far away, but in my community and in the community surrounding me in my district, there are some really good municipal aid reps who I think right now would be happy to help you out and help you get through, so to get you off the hamster wheel. And this bill that you're talking about here is an act concerning a view of municipal tax options. You know, we're the state government. So my views on that are a little bit different. If the state is going to offset those municipal tax things, then I'll have that conversation. You know, if we're talking about state income tax breaks and things like that, I think that's our purview. When we overstep our bounds and put more stress on our municipalities, we're struggling already. I think that's easy for us to sit here on our big perch in Hartford and then pass those things on to our municipalities without funding them. So there are already some, there's tax breaks already available, we can certainly continue to have that conversation. But there are a lot of programs that are available to you now that you're obviously not being able to take advantage of. And I would like to see you to be able to do that. So if you would share your information with me as well, I can put you in touch with someone almost immediately to start help on these things to get you off the hamster wheel. Are you still there, Mr. Knapp?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Representative Poulos?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. Knapp for his service. And before, when I put my hand up, it was before Representative Vale spoke, but want to echo what he shared, that municipalities by statute can enact all kinds of programs to help veterans. And in my district, I'm from Southington. My father was a veteran, by the way, and so it's a cause that's very near and dear to me. But in my district, we were able to expand those programs, the limits of those programs, the eligibility limits. And so certainly in the district, there are programs, and I would encourage you to go and seek those programs out. As Representative Vale said as well, there are advocates in your municipality, and I certainly support 643. I believe that it's a no-brainer to expand opportunities for municipalities to access these programs for their residents. And so I wish you well. I thank you, and I encourage you to seek out assistance at the municipal level. And you have my support here at the Capitol for expanding bits that are already in place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Poulos. Next, we have Representative Santos on Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Knapp, I just wanted to thank you for your testimony this morning. It's not easy to talk about these things. I know that because I have many friends who have served recently, either in different theaters, Afghanistan or Iraq. And I know that talking about your service isn't easy, but also talking about the help that you need is not easy. It's not something that comes naturally. But I appreciate you coming before us, having the courage to come before us and display what you need, what the issue is, and why you're not getting that assistance. I know that perhaps some of the frustrations that you have is with the federal VA, and as representatives in the state of Connecticut and being on this committee, there's a limit to how much we can do with the federal VA, or at least change some of the process there. I know that we all take pride in our Department of Veterans Affairs here in the state of Connecticut, led by Commissioner Sadi. And I know that he is always on top of these kinds of issues and will do anything he can to assist you. But I understand the frustration. I understand that when you're, like you mentioned, on that hamster wheel there, it doesn't always seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can tell you that my support, and I think perhaps vast support for SB 643 is strong, because you've given up so much for our country, which many of us who have not served can only even imagine what that is like. But you know, that's the minimum that we can do for you. And so I join my colleagues in offering any kind of support that I can to make these connections for you. And I truly thank you for coming before us, because I know it can't be easy. And I congratulate you on your sobriety, and also on your strength and willingness not to give up on Connecticut. Because as you mentioned, one of the things that stuck with me was that you could have gone anywhere else, other states, right? And perhaps it's time that we join those other 18 states exempting your veterans from taxes, which I agree with. But you're sticking it out here, not just for yourself, but for every other veteran in the state of Connecticut. And I applaud you for that, sir. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Vice Chair Representative Delaney.
Thank you, Chair. And I won't take too long. Mr. Knapp, I just wanted to say a few things. One, as a U.S. Army sergeant and a soldier who has recently made the transition from active duty to the reserves, who's currently serving now, you know, I know firsthand how difficult it can be to make that transition and to make the call to come back to Connecticut. So one, I want to thank you for what you've done, for your service, and for making that transition. And two, I just want to commend you on your bravery. You know, it can be difficult to talk about your service. It can be even more difficult to talk about needing help. And a lot of soldiers, a lot of service members who we deal with in my home city of Stamford are dealing with the same thing. You know, it can be difficult to trust people with your problems, and that's really where leadership lies. So thank you for what you've done. You know, thank you for pushing through it. Thank you for coming here to advocate for your fellow soldiers, your battle buddies, and, you know, and for fighting to push out of the hamster wheel. And I do join my colleagues in saying that we are here for you. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, Chair Nolan has another comment.
Sir, just so you know, in 643, if you, I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, it's requiring OLR to review all current authorized municipal property tax relief for veterans and provide a comprehensive list of such options, including which municipalities are offering and what municipalities' mill rate is, exemption or abatement amount, qualifying income thresholds, size of grand list, and medium home value. That's one of the bills that we have in right now, and we're hoping to start with that so that we can get the information from municipalities so that we can ensure that those things are getting out to our veterans. And hopefully a next step would be changing some of the taxation for veterans. Thank you, sir. Again, have a nice day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, seeing no more questions, Mr. Knapp, thank you very much for your testimony. We heard you loud and clear, and I hope we can do something to help.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Heidi Cornell on Zoom.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, ranking and honorable members of the Veterans Affairs Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Heidi Cornell. I'm a veteran who served 23 years in the United States Air Force, including 12 different duty stations and 2 combat deployments in Bosnia and Iraq. I was raised here in Connecticut, went to University of Connecticut, and then returned here after I retired from the Air Force. I'm here today to request your support in passing proposed Senate Bill, I believe it's 1128 now. Originally, it was 639 to exempt 100% disabled veterans from property taxes. It appears that this bill has been rolled up with some other bills into 1128 to increase property tax exemptions for other veterans and their spouses. I tried reading the language in the rolled up bill and I had a really hard time understanding all of it, but I just wanted to let you know I'm here today to address the exemption of 100% disabled veterans from taxes, property taxes, that is. Connecticut is far behind most states when it comes to honoring the sacrifices that their veterans have made. We can and should do more for our disabled veteran population. The great majority of states, 39 of them, give significantly higher tax exemptions to their disabled veterans. And as Mr. Knapp noted, currently 18 states fully exempt their 100% disabled veterans from property taxation. Meanwhile, Connecticut has one of the lowest veteran populations in the country and one of the highest property tax rates, which makes it really hard for our disabled veterans to stay in their homes here in Connecticut. And people don't generally come to Connecticut to retire unless this really is their home and they really want to stay here. In the entire state, there are only 4,400 veterans who are 100% disabled. This is just 0.1% of the population. Currently, Connecticut state law allows for the deduction of $3,500 off of the assessed value of a 100% disabled veteran's property, which at the average Connecticut mill rate amounts to approximately $100 savings a year or $8 a month. While property taxes in Connecticut have skyrocketed, tax exemptions for veterans have not been updated for decades. And unfortunately, the language that had been in place that allowed the tax exemptions to increase along with grand list increases has been removed so that the tax exemptions cannot keep up with tax increases. Similar acts to this one have been proposed and repeatedly voted down. Just 2 years ago, the proposed bill to exempt 100% disabled veterans from property taxes was voted down in favor of a study aimed at overhauling the state's tax exemptions for all veterans. The study never happened. And once again, nothing has changed for our disabled veterans.
Cornell, your time has elapsed. Please summarize if you would.
Okay, this is a small group of men and women who have sacrificed for us and our freedoms, and the passage of this bill is a small but meaningful request to honor their sacrifice and help our veterans stay in their homes in Connecticut. Now is the time to vote yes for this change. I thank you for your time, consideration, and service to our state and its veterans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you sincerely for your service. Any questions? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Heidi. So I've actually been looking at, I'm not a 23-year veteran, but a 4-year veteran. So, but Army, not Air Force. So I've been looking at the base property tax exemption and found most recently that the base property tax exemption had been put in 1889 for $1,000 off the assessed value of a house relative to the cost in 1889. And in many respects, that has not kept up with pace since 1889. It was about 16% of a house's value back then, because most houses were valued at about $6,000. We are now below about 1/100% off of the assessed value at $1,000 off the assessed value. Whereas today, and I'm not saying that this should ever change, but first responders or firefighters get up to $2,000 off of their income, off of their property taxes directly. But veterans are getting about the $1,000 equates to about $15 off of your property taxes, and what you're saying is about $100 on the disabled veterans. So I think we have to really update all of these, because back when they were first started, a dollar amount off the assessed value meant something. A dollar amount off the assessed value does not mean anything right now, and many people don't even put in for it because it doesn't have value to that. About $15 now for the base property tax exemption for veterans. So I think you're right. We do need to review these and come up with some reasonable expectations. But I would push back a little bit on Connecticut not doing much for veterans. We've done actually an awful lot for veterans, relative to the fact that you can go to a state university for free if you're, in particular, someone that's a 23-year veteran. You can there are so many things that your income tax is now 100% exempt on your retirement. That's a big deal. So these are things that we have been working on to make sure that Connecticut was actually keeping up with the times for their veterans. And I just wanted to push back a tad on what you were saying, because we have done a lot. Do we have more to do? Yes. In particular, relative to property taxes. So I want to thank you for your testimony, but I wanted to agree and then push back a tad. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Heidi, do you have anything you want to respond with that?
No, I agree. And I've received some great benefits and service here in the state. So I do appreciate that. I think the tax exemption is a pretty big deal for most veterans. And so I think if there's anything we can do to help increase the exemption so we can help veterans stay in their homes. That's really what I'm pushing for. And then I know there also was language that recently changed. They used to have language that at least you would take the grand list of a town and divide it by the previous year's grand list, and there would be a multiplier that would help bring the exemption up with the grand list increases. And it was just in October that language was changed. But I know in practice, they hadn't been following the language anyway. So really the exemptions are just so small right now. And I just think we really need to do something for our veterans. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you for coming and being an advocate. And, oh, okay. Do you want to go? Okay, Representative Vale has a question, please wait.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The whole thing, when we deal with municipal tax relief, I always have, who's going to pay for that? And that's what my biggest concern is. I'm all about income tax relief because that's state money. We have small towns or any town, any city that relies on property taxes. We put so many mandates on these towns in Connecticut as it is. That we constantly are putting mandates on them, expecting them, and then having them flip the bill. So again, if we're going to reimburse everything, I'm certainly willing to listen to that conversation. But I have concerns. Do you think the state, because everyone, I think when they think of property tax, they think, oh, the state should do that, but it's the municipalities that are going to flip the bill. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I did some calculations, and again, we're talking about a really small segment of the population. So I know in my town in Fairfield, there are exactly 17 100% disabled veterans. So, and I did submit, Brenda Kupchik, our first select woman, submitted some testimony also supporting this bill. So I know, and when I did the calculation based on the median home value and the percentage of people who own homes, and then the average mill rate, it came out to maybe $100,000, probably less than that per municipality that this would cost. And so I think we're not talking huge dollars. And I'm not sure exactly how it would be paid for. I don't know if the state can reimburse the towns and the municipalities. But again, I'm just trying to get a start here with the most disabled veterans, although I think we need to overhaul all of the tax exemptions. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, again, it's just $100,000 for a small town or a non-Fairfield County town can be pretty expensive.
Right. I was doing an average, so that it would be less for smaller towns.
Both CCM, which I believe Fairfield belongs to, and COS, which is small towns, oppose this because again,
they always do.
Onus back on them. And that's where my concern is. I'd rather find tax relief elsewhere, where not everybody owns property. Not every veteran owns property. Maybe there's an income tax relief and things like that, things we've already been working on a little bit. So I do have concerns. I'll continue to listen to the conversation. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Vale. Seeing no more questions, and Senator Austin is a champion of this. And I want to thank you she just doesn't give up. So thank you, Heidi, for your testimony. Next, we have Bernd Mathis. Did I say it right? Are you there, sir? Oh, no, I saw you. Bernd, we will come back. I'm not sure what happened. So next we have Dennis Carnelli, and he is here in person with us.
You hear? Okay. Slide the screen so it can show. I'll just slide it sideways.
Bernd, we're going to come back to you. Okay, we're going to let the next speaker go.
Great. Yeah, thank you. We get
Okay, just turn off your
text.
mic. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Co-chair Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, Ranking Member Vale, Senator Austin, and other honorable members of this committee. Good morning. Excuse me. My name is Dennis Carnelli. I'm the chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs section of the Connecticut Bar Association. I'm an attorney in private practice with the law firm of Newbert, Pepe and Monteith in New Haven, and I am a U.S. Army combat veteran of the Iraq War. I come before you today in my individual capacity, just to clarify, not speaking on behalf of the Bar Association, to testify in support of SB 1128 and that concerning certain property tax exemptions for veterans. And I'm here specifically in support of Section 20B, which would completely exempt from local taxation property owned by or held in trust for a Connecticut resident to whom the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has assigned a 100% disability rating. I urge this committee to favorably report this bill, and I truly hope it does so unanimously. Connecticut should join the 18 other states, including our neighbors, New Hampshire and New Jersey, that have enacted similar legislation exempting property owned by 100% disabled veterans from taxation. These are the most severely injured veterans among us. While serving for our collective benefit, often in combat, these veterans made every sacrifice but the ultimate one. Most are age 55 and over. Many are underemployed or unemployable and subsisting on a fixed income. Connecticut has one of the highest property tax burdens in the country. This bill would permanently alleviate that burden for the most severely injured veterans in our state. Given the contributions and sacrifices made by these veterans for the collective benefit of our society, I submit that this bill offers these veterans nothing more and nothing less than they deserve. I therefore urge this committee to do what it must to ensure that this bill is brought to the floor for a vote in both chambers forthwith. With the chair's permission, I have some statistics I'd like to add to my written submission that I just read. Thank you. So going off script here for a second, you've heard some numbers and statistics, and you may hear some other ones too, but I can tell you I have some here that might be helpful, and then some other points that might be helpful to addressing some of the issues raised in connection with this bill. First and foremost, so according to Google, as of this morning, Connecticut has a population of 3.6 million people. 0.1% of Connecticut's population, or approximately, are 100% disabled veterans, approximately 3,716 veterans. And that's as of April 19, 2022, according to a FOIA request that I made to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, you take those 3,716 veterans, not all of them own homes or real property. According to the most recent data I could find, which is from the 2017 American Community Survey, 78% of veterans at large own homes. So now we're substantially under 3,000 veterans. 2,898 by my count. Again, these are just estimates. But mindful of the fiscal impact or lack thereof, in my view, but the fiscal issues raised, one thing the committee might consider is currently drafted, this bill would apply to any veteran who's deemed totally disabled, who has 100% disability rating. A substantial, well, I suppose the best way to say it is this: is that a significantly less than 2,898 of our 100% disabled veterans are going to be deemed permanently disabled by the Department of Veterans Affairs. And what does that mean? That is an additional designation that the federal DVA assigns to certain veterans for, among other things, when their disabilities are permanent, when they're reasonably certain to continue for the rest of their lives, the disabilities are totally disabling, and are at that total 100% level, or otherwise prevents them from securing and maintaining employment. And I brought with me today, and I have a copy. I'm not sure what this committee's procedures, if any, are for the submission of documentation, but it's just a redacted copy from a veteran that I've worked with in my experience, showing how easy it is to ascertain if a veteran is both 100% disabled and deemed permanently disabled due to services connected disabilities. It's literally on a form. The question, you are considered to be totally and permanently disabled due solely to your service connected disabilities. Yes. So although personally I would be opposed to any such restriction of this bill, candidly, because these are, again, the veterans who sacrifice the most, usually at the expense of foregoing the benefits and opportunities that their civilian contemporaries did as part of their military service to this country and for our collective benefit. And also because it would exclude from this bill's provisions veterans who are deemed 100% disabled and unemployable by the VA, which is a distinct category, 100% disabled veterans.
Sir, I'm just gonna,
I was gonna say, I'm gonna stop.
you've
there.
definitely gone over your 3 minutes, but that's
Sorry.
great. You're interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna ask,
Sure.
just, I live in New London, Connecticut, which the second congressional district, I believe, has the most veterans in all of Connecticut. My city is the 5th most distressed municipality in Connecticut. So do you have breakdown of where the veterans are, even per congressional district or per municipality?
Well, you can add that information is available on the VA website. They have a data it's a section of the website for like the analytics, basically, where there's a breakdown by a congressional district of 100% disabled veteran. I believe it's categorized 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and there's a separate category for 100% by county and congressional district. So these numbers are ascertainable, and just very quickly, the reason I brought these statistics with me today, and I wasn't sure if I was going to, is because I saw the objections from the lobbyists on behalf of the municipalities, which I understand the concerns they're raising, but they are lacking any data to support the notion that there's going to be some type of cataclysmic fiscal impact.
Well, what do you consider to be a cataclysmic fiscal event?
Well, I suppose I don't know what the answer to that is, but
Yeah,
but the notion that, I should back up and say this, is that, the idea that 100% disabled veterans, as these are people who served and have proved to the federal DVA that they suffer from medical conditions and disabilities incurred as a direct result of their military service for our benefit, is getting caught up in what is a meritorious issue. Don't get me wrong about the poll and the dynamics between the state and municipalities. It is something I have trouble grappling with in this context. So my apologies if I'm assuming the premise.
thank you, sir, for your advocacy and for your service. And are there any other questions? Chair Nolan.
Thank you, sir, for coming before us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for yours.
What you've talked about are some interesting things. And I know you said you bought like an addendum that you didn't get to put in. So if you would give that to our clerk so that he can give it to others. And if you're not in a hurry to leave today, I'd actually like to sit and chat with you
Sure.
for a few minutes just to further understand what you have in as far as discussion, because I know you're only limited to a certain amount of time today. But I want to thank you for coming. And as I said earlier, I have a keen interest in making sure that we do something for our veterans when it comes to this. So I'll be glad to just sit with you and have further discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. So thank you for coming. And I, like you, have a hard time grappling with the fact that we could not recognize those who are 100% disabled for serving our country. So I have statistics also. So 1%, less than 1% of the population of the United States serve in the military. And that is those who choose to serve our country and never know the outcome of that service, because you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where the next conflict may be, where the next war may be, where you may be sent as a result of your service. Whether you are a man or a woman nowadays, there are many areas in this country that, in this whole world, that are seeing increasing conflicts where our men and women who are currently serving may happen to be deployed to. We have people in the National Guard deployed all the time because we cannot come up with enough regular service members to serve all our needs relative to deployment. So I was a first selectman for 12 years. And in that capacity, in my first probably 3 or 4 years, I was able to get through and we had to get them approved at a town meeting. Every single exemption for veterans that had been put in that had to be approved by a municipality. And I also can't seem to grapple with the notion that this would be too great a cost for a municipality. Now, I also live in Eastern Connecticut, as I think all 4 of us live in Eastern Connecticut, and one part of Eastern Connecticut or not. And the fact is that the 2nd Congressional District has the most veterans because of the sub-base. I happen to have been in the Army, but the sub-base, and because of some of the bills that we have passed, has seen an increased number of people staying after their service commitment, staying right here in Connecticut, because, you know, I think Connecticut's a great place to live. We have great benefits. And I just don't see, quite frankly, how we put a number on that. How do we put a number on what will happen? I can't, for the life of me, see us saying to someone, you know, I'm a Vietnam era veteran and I never was in combat. But I can't see saying to someone who was over in Vietnam, who suffered the consequences of the loss of a limb, or many other ways that someone could be claimed as permanently disabled, that we, in our hearts, can't figure out how to get that done. And I understand Senator Marks and Representative Vale are concerned about municipalities. There are many ways we could deal with this. They could send a bill to appropriations and say, we want the veterans exemption to include these 3,000 disabled veterans. We want the state to pick up the tab there. But that has never made it that far. It ends up having a discussion here and ends up having a discussion that ultimately ends up with us maybe passing it out of committee, but not having a true vote. But I can't, I just can't for the life of me see it when we are right now. We have passed bills, and other than Senator Marks, who is not here, for firefighters who get $2,000 off their property tax exemption. Right now, the way the exemptions were set up for veterans, they're getting $15, $100. And we can't figure out how to do that. If we want to say that they get $2,000 just like a firefighter, that's a discussion. But I for the life of me, I find this to be a discussion not based in reality. Because that reality is those men and women gave just short of the ultimate sacrifice for us. And I can't get beyond that. For the life of me, I can't get beyond that. And I'm a post commander in my American Legion. I watch those who were in Vietnam continue to suffer the consequences of the actions that happened in Vietnam when we couldn't find it in our hearts then to respect our men and women in uniform. And they still suffer the consequences of that. This is a moral action, in my opinion, and it's something that we should just do. So you have my support on this from all the way through a vote on the floor of the Senate. And I'm hoping that it gets there this year. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Austin. It's you make some compelling arguments, and that's why we have public hearings. So we sit and we get to hear everybody's thoughts. Chair Nolan has something else he'd like to say?
Yeah, being that the senator opened an invitation to send this to approps to try and make the finances come to fruition. I think when this comes up for the next stage, that I will take that position and JF it so that it goes to appropriations to see what appropriations can do as far as helping our veterans a little bit more. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Mr. Bernd Mathis, are you there on Zoom now?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the time. I'll apologize in advance if our cell service goes down because the Wi-Fi just crashed. So I'm Ben Mattice. I want to shout a big hoo-ah to Senator Austin as a fellow Army veteran. Maybe we have some common interests here I'd like to bring up. I'm one of those military retirees who chose to return to Connecticut. I'm a proud 1971 graduate of Canton High School, back in the day when the Collins Company was still manufacturing axes and machetes before that manufacturing moved south of the border. So after 22 years of military service from the Vietnam era right into Desert Storm, moving my spouse and my family 16 times in 22 years, I was grateful to return to Connecticut, and we've lived very comfortably in Cheshire, the bedding plant capital, since 1990. In 2015, I was diagnosed with service-connected amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, as a service connection. The cause of that disease is unknown to this day, and it may be related to exposure to toxic chemicals and gases, which all soldiers trained under. And I had service in North Africa and Europe with additional duties as a chemical, biological, and radiological officer. So I don't know what I may have ingested or been exposed to, but I have this disease. And the service received from the Veterans Administration in Connecticut is just outstanding. I happen to live in a fairly wealthy town, and I'm one of the few 100% disabled veterans in the state that's been able to receive the full tax waiver under Section C of the current bill and the one that's proposed also. The issue is those of us that have received federal assistance to modify our homes are then entitled, if our municipality approves it, to a full property tax waiver. So after paying taxes in Connecticut, in Cheshire for 25 years, the town council saw fit to approve a full 100% property tax waiver on the basis of my 100% disability and the fact that I used federal assistance to modify our home. So what I would ask the committee to consider is perhaps making that provision in the bill more generous to include all 100% disabled veterans, including the other junior services. Because what it doesn't allow is those veterans that aren't qualified for a full,
your time has elapsed. Please summarize if you would.
they may be in a hospice or a palliative care state at the end of their lives. The current medical care approaches to age and expire in place wherever possible. So there are veterans that don't have homes that have been modified that aren't qualified for that 100% property waiver. And this would be an appropriate way to help recognize their contributions, not just to the military services, but also to their communities in places where they've resided for prolonged periods of time. So those are my only two issues, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time and for all that you're doing to support the 1% of the population that continues to serve under arms.
Thank you, Mr. Matthijs. Sincerely, thank you for your service, and I wish you well battling this disease. Are there anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, sir. Next, we have Diane Nadeau.
Good morning. Thank you all for showing up on this snowy day. The roads are terrible, so you getting there to Hartford is wonderful. Thank you. My name is Diane Nadeau. I'm the Executive Director of the Eastern Connecticut Veterans Community Center. We are located in Willimantic and a volunteer-run facility. In the last year, we've seen about 20,000 different veterans that have come through our center. We help them with a variety of issues, whether they're starting a company or they need help finding housing because they're homeless, and everything in between. I'm here today to support SB number 1132, the Act excluding veterans' disability payments from income for purposes of eligibility for certain state benefits. This is huge, and it's very important for the people that we see. So you have a veteran who for many years hasn't gotten any disability. They didn't know, or under now the new PACT Act, they're eligible for certain different disabilities and illnesses, and they go and they apply for this, and then they find out, okay, they're going to get an extra somewhere $150 a month to a couple $100 a month because they were injured or poisoned during their active military service. And because they're getting that compensation, they now find out that they're no longer eligible for their housing, or their rent goes up significantly, sometimes doubled. They lose their SNAP or food benefits, their energy assistance benefits, and oftentimes, if they're paying for Medicare in addition to their VA healthcare, their rates will go up. So when you cost this out, them getting what they are due for an injury or illness while they were serving now makes them ineligible for all of these services. So many, after us working this out, don't apply. And that's not fair, and that's not right. Or they do apply and they're 100% disabled, but they are not able to receive some of the other compensation or state benefit programs. They're not eligible for them. So as somebody who works with these folks on a daily basis, this winter, I had 3 people that got 10% because of hearing loss. They made about little over $100 a month, and then they lost, again, all of these benefits, their SNAP and their energy, which it doesn't make up for the difference. So we are definitely in support of passing that. The other thing, very quickly, HB House Bill number 6004, Act eliminating service in time of war as an eligibility criterion. And I will use my friend Senator Austin's comments that she just made. Veterans do not decide where they get stationed. They don't decide what wars occur or skirmishes or battles occur while they serve. We don't know when the next war is, the next conflict, and again, where they're sent. Those folks that went to boots on the ground in Vietnam, they were the unlucky ones. But just as many people showed up for service for the draft or signed on the bottom line that they were willing to give their lives for our country. So the fact that they were lucky and not sent someplace, or that they were lucky that they served during the Cold War, for example, and not during an active military battle, should not prevent them from getting the full set of veterans benefits. And like I said, it's not their fault, quote unquote, that they didn't fight during a period of war. They were willing to. So therefore, I think that the benefits should be the same. So that criteria of fighting during a time of war should not be considered. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond to them.
Thank you so much for all you do for our veterans, and I could not agree with you more. Chair Nolan?
thank you, Diane, for coming before us. I just want to thank you for the service that you give and the work that you do with many veterans in Willimantic. Visiting you and seeing the amount of veterans that turn out was an amazing time. And I hope to get back there soon to try and have some more fellowship because it was fun to come and chat and have a little get together. So thank you again for all you do.
Thank you. And let me just extend a warm invitation to any of you who serve on this committee that if you'd like to come out to our center to see the programs and the services that we do, we'd be happy to have you.
Thank you. Definitely take you up on that. And Ranking Member Rep Fail, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon now. Diane, I just wanted to just say thank you for your continued advocacy in our region for veterans and always keeping us abreast of things that are going on in the field. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
You are very welcome. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to being on the committee that works on the municipal representative program.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more questions. Thank you very much. Next, we have Randy Collins.
I guess good afternoon, members of the Veteran and Military Affairs Committee. My name is Randy Collins. I'm an advocacy manager with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and here today raising concerns with Senate Bill 1128, which would expand or create new unfunded mandates on the property tax. This has never been easy issue for me to come up and speak on, but on behalf of our municipalities, we are overly reliant due to current statute. We're overly reliant on a property tax. And as we hear the testimony that's given, I mean, it's hard, as I said, it's hard for us to come and raise concerns in some of these bills. And, and a lot of the testimony was talking about the limited scope of these particular exemptions. And the scope might be limited, but when you look at, 1281, in the general statutes, when viewed individually, they're not very big. But when we're looking at over 100 mandated property tax exemptions, numerous municipal option property tax exemptions, it just continues to put so much burden on our regressive property tax system that our municipalities are forced to rely on. These policies have some of our largest and most distressed municipalities are almost 50% tax exempt. And it creates such a burden on the payers that we do have. Our businesses that are in our municipalities continues to make housing unaffordable, which has been a key issue that we've been working on this whole session. Did want to speak to Senator Austin's comments about pushing this towards looking if we can do something to move this into the Appropriations Committee and find some state aid to help. I think that would be a great benefit to our veterans and to our municipalities who certainly want to support those who have given so much to our state and our nation. So again, tough issue for us to talk about, but we do have to raise the concerns on any property tax exemptions that are coming down and just shifting that burden from the state, from the state side to the towns who are going to have to pay the bill. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So Randy, first, let me thank you for your service when you speak to this issue. I think people know that you were in the military also, and most recently too, not too long ago. So I want to thank you for that. But pardon me for not knowing, but I've sat on many committees that looked at tax exemptions for firefighters, and I did not recall. And I'm going to go back and look, but I did not recall CCM looking at not supporting the firefighter tax exemptions. So we just passed that not last year or the year before, where we extended it at a municipal option to go up to $2,000 when many municipalities have offered that. So I'm curious, did CCM have a position on those? And pardon me if I just don't remember that was something you testified against. I usually pay attention to what you're testifying against or for that matter. I would say
I
the
don't,
for is not as many as the against, but
I certainly, I do enjoy testifying in support of bills rather than being on the defensive, rather to make progress. I don't recall, as I said, I'm not sure where that bill might have originated from. As I said, I typically will object to all property tax exemptions, and if I had seen it or one of my colleagues, I don't know if they had flagged it or not. As I said, this is something that, CCM is trying very hard to move away from. I think from 10 years ago when I started with CCM, that, we had the moniker of CCM, the Council of Crying Mayors, and we just said no to everything. And I think we've tried very hard to move into a position to be more supportive and find middle ground on a lot of different issues. And I think, these are some of the issues that we'd like to be able to find that middle ground. How do we provide assistance without putting the full burden onto our municipalities? So I can't speak to the firefighter exemption. If it had come before finance over the last few years since I've taken over duties, I would have, raised concerns on it. But I can look back to see where our position was, when that bill came forward.
so thank you for that. But it came through public safety. And it's come through public safety a number of times. And I don't believe that it's ever been testified against. So I just want to equate the fact that we can support an exemption, a $2,000 exemption for firefighters, but we can't afford an exemption for 100% disabled veterans. And I just want to be cautious on us, not doing this. We all know the recruitment levels in the military is awful. The many young people don't see any benefit to serving in our military. And there are many of us on this committee that, well, I don't know that there's many, but there's a couple of us on this committee that were in the military and we chose that. So I just really think that we really need to be cognizant of the fact that we were okay with giving a $2,000 property tax exemption. And I heard nobody talk against it at all. I'm going to go back and look, but I didn't think there was a single piece of testimony against that, but we are speaking against a property tax exemption for someone who is 100% disabled after serving our country. I think that I voted for the firefighters to get their exemption. I think they should. And we did that because many municipalities are having a hard time getting volunteer firefighters to come through. As a matter of fact, I think that was Representative Lanew's bill. So I just want to point that out. And I look forward to you testifying to give towns more money out of the Mashantucket Pequot Fund, which I have a bill on again this year. So thank you for that, Randy, and thank you for your service.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you. As I said, I appreciate your service as well and your continued service to the state and now in this role. And, I can look back to public safety. It's one of the few committees I think over my years here that I don't think I've ever spoken in front of, but if my colleague had missed it, I will give him grief because, again, I don't want to pick and choose which property tax exemptions because, as I said, I don't want to speak. Our opposition is not based on the merit. It's the overall impact to the property tax system. Certainly, as I said, I know a lot of veterans that, as I said, I chose to serve and chose to deploy. And, I got a lot of benefit from it. I joked that I didn't learn any tangible job skills being in the infantry, but I did learn a lot of life lessons that I do apply on a daily basis. So something I don't necessarily miss the Marine Corps, but I definitely miss my Marines on a daily basis.
Thank you. We have another question. Ranking Member Vale, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Randy. I've served on the Public Safety Committee for my entire career here, which is now in my 9th year. And we listened to that. And one of the biggest reasons that they look for the towns didn't have to, it wasn't a mandate. They could participate in volunteer firefighters. I think it's an apples and orange situation. Mostly it was for towns that had volunteer firefighters who did not get paid. And it was, in lieu of that they could participate by giving them, I think it was $1,500 and now up to $2,000. I could be wrong, but and that was the option of the town to be able to do that. And these were volunteer firefighters, probably many of who were veterans as well. People tend to stay in service in some capacity, but I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare the two very different things. And so I don't know what your recollection is of that, but that's my recollection, that it was, we upped it, and that it was mainly for the towns that have volunteer firefighters because they didn't get paid anything, to serve and protect our towns in that capacity. And so it was an option for municipalities to give that tax exemption if they so choose. Is that your recollection, or do you have one at all?
I will, honestly, I will say I don't truly recall it. We at CCM, we cover so many bills, and with now a strong focus on the approach and the finance side, that I'm not as familiar, but I know that my colleague who served for many years as a volunteer firefighter in Weathersfield, that's his issue area. And I can certainly reach out and find out what the position was and the thought process that we took on that. And again, this isn't about, trying to deny, benefits. And as I said, I've talked Gold Star parents, and, thankfully there's so few of them, but it's just one of those of, a lot, 99 to 100 unfunded mandates, why they're small individually, can just devastate a municipality when taken in its totality. And I think we'd love to sit there and have the conversation. I had this in finance yesterday of how do we reform that property tax system so, these small exemptions don't become, a burden, an overwhelming burden. Most other states aren't as, very few states are as reliant on the property taxes as Connecticut is. Now, there are other revenue options that exist in municipalities. And, when this is truly one of the main revenue system to fund public safety, maintain our roads, education, that any erosion to that becomes just, something that we just have to raise concerns over. But we can look into the public safety aspect, and I'd be happy to circle back to the committee on it.
Yeah, Mr. Collins, Senator Austin, go right ahead.
So we have a great LCO on this committee, and he looked it up, and Donna Hamsey submitted an opposition to that. So just so you know, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Collins. And then our last speaker, Robert Burgess.
Good afternoon, co-chair Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, ranking members, Representative Vale, Senator Austin, and members of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Thank you for taking some time today to hear from me. You have my written testimony. For those of you who don't know me, I am Robert Burgess, the president of the National Guard Association of the Connecticut. It is a not-for-profit corporation organized for the purpose of improving the quality of life for the Connecticut National Guard and the welfare of its members and retirees. Our organization strongly supports Senate Bill number 638, an act concerning a fee waiver at public institutions of higher education for certain veterans and members of the Connecticut National Guard. This bill supports recruiting and retention within the Connecticut National Guard, and it also provides equity and equality to our soldiers and airmen as it creates consistency across our Connecticut public colleges and universities. To go off script here a little bit, the uniqueness of the tuition waiver here in Connecticut has profound effects on the educational journeys of many of our National Guardsmen and veterans. It cannot be overstated. Having first been passed in 1981, I mean, countless thousands of our Connecticut National Guardsmen and veterans have used this benefit on their educational journey. The struggle that we have currently is that there isn't an equal basis across the Connecticut colleges and universities for application of that waiver when it accounts to certain off sessions, so it's the winter session or summer sessions, which is sometimes necessary for our veterans to be able to utilize in the completion of their educational journeys. It's important to remember that this waiver benefits the state of Connecticut as a whole. Of the 5,000 National Guardsmen here in the state, most live here and serve here. So money that is saved here is spent here, and that's just not something that we can even measure in any capacity. In addition to the skills and benefits that they get, not only through their education, but their military service is something that the state receives benefit on. And that is aside from the benefit the state receives just from the National Guard as a whole. I ask all of the members of the committee to think to themselves, when something happens within the state and you hear the National Guard is coming, what is your first response? It's usually a pretty positive response. Thanks to the National Guard. Thanks for coming. So again, as you know, recruiting qualified citizens into the Connecticut National Guard is currently the organization's most pressing challenge. This bill will help further address that challenge by creating parity amongst our members and utilizing this benefit at Connecticut public colleges and universities. Additionally, depending on the school that they attend, some guardsmen and women may receive the waiver for intersession classes and some may not. So what we're looking for is just standardization across the board. That'll alleviate some of the, you can imagine the disappointment from students of realizing that some get it and some do not, and how we can get past that. This bill clarifies that the waiver would apply to all classes at public colleges and universities within the state. And this clarification is especially important for our soldiers and airmen. Again, as I had stated, as winter and summer session classes may be necessary for the timely completion of their degree programs due to interruptions in their education due to their military service. I open the floor for any of your questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
I have a question, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
okay. Yep, Representative Anderson, go right ahead.
Thank you. I wasn't quick enough with the. Randy, thank you for your testimony. I've heard from a constituent on this and talked briefly to Major Hyman. What I'm trying to understand what the current situation is and what this bill would change. So it's my understanding that the public colleges waive tuition for current National Guard members. The constituent I heard from was asking that the tuition waiver be extended to the summer and winter sessions, but this bill talks about extension fee, so I'm not really understanding the current situation, what this bill would change, how it affects tuition for the summer and winter sessions. Thank you.
So currently the tuition waiver, the tuition is for your standard semesters. Some of the colleges, not all of the colleges, some of the college will consider any extension or off session or off semester to be essentially a fee. They don't consider that to be a tuition. What we're looking for, what this bill would support, would be that those fees would be covered under the tuition waiver. Not all colleges do this. I don't have an exact breakdown of which colleges support it and which ones do not, but what this bill would do is provide just essentially clarity across all of the public colleges and universities. Does that answer your question?
Partly. Now, I spent, a lot of time as a Massachusetts resident, a member of reserve units in Connecticut and Massachusetts. And I recall when Massachusetts instituted the tuition waiver, there was a provision that there had to be empty seats in the class to minimize the loss in revenue to the school. How does Connecticut handle that as far as, does there have to be vacancies in that class?
I'm not completely familiar with that. I do not believe, I've never heard that, that there has to be vacancies within the class in order for the tuition waiver to apply. I can tell you specifically as a personal anecdote, I'm a recipient of the tuition waiver. It's something I used way back when. A few years have gone by, but that was was a significant benefit to, again, my educational journey. And again, I speak for thousands that have come before me. But to answer your question, I don't believe it is based on seat vacancy.
All right, I appreciate it. And I know that the Guard and all the services are facing severe recruiting shortfalls. So thank you for testifying on this bill. Looks very interesting. Looks like what one of my constituents was looking for. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It looks like there's no other questions, Mr. Burgess. Thank you for speaking. And having no other speakers, the public hearing is adjourned.